Back and rested from the international break. The commentators, but more importantly, the players, the coaches. And we came back from training today, Roberto and I, and so we're going to report on that and talk a little bit about a guy we hope to meet tomorrow, Mauricio Pochettino, on NYCFC Views Live.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy.
Tiene tiro y gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer!
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah, man. Welcome back to us here on the Sick Podcast, NYCFC Views, and Roberto Abramowitz, Spanish commentator, myself, Glenn Crooks, on the English side. And as I put out in the tweet or in something on social media leading into this live, we have been there since the first kick. We have the great privilege of traveling with the team, which we have since the first kick as well, going to Orlando for that first match where Kaká scores the late free kick to make a 1-1. I guess it wasn't that late. It was second half, but I don't think it was that late.
Oh, yeah, it was stoppage time, if I believe.
Was it that late?
It was really late. They had the game won, and they found a way to take it into a tie.
Well, it kind of reminds you how things have gone a little recently for the boys in blue here in 2024. But well, look, we were at practice today. We haven't been there in a while, and I think the first thing you do, you get there and you look out and go, "Is Sands out there? Is Freeze out there? Is Pere out there?" Because these are guys that are coming off of injuries. So we know Sands is full bore, James Sands, which is great news coming off of concussion protocol. And and we got a lot to talk about here today, because I've got Mark Geiger talking about Ted Unkel's pick. I want everybody to be ready for that. I've got that coming up soon. We got Troy Lesane, who's the DC United coach. He's going to talk about Mateusz Klich, who is their best. He's definitely, you've got Christian Benteke with all those goals, but this guy Klich really runs the show and makes a lot of it happen. I still think he's the most important player on their team, but I'm sure that's up for a discussion and argument. Nick Cushing, we got him talking about Alonso Martínez. We got him talking about trying to mark a Benteke, and we've got him talking about the lost art of defending. Love it. But back to the injured players. So Sands is back.
Which is great news.
Andres Pereira going full bore today. So the midfield depth has just improved. And then and Matt Freeze was out there, and now it's just a matter of making a determination whether he's ready to go from the beginning. But man, an MCL sprain versus an ACL tear, which was the initial fear. Freeze is going to play again this year, and maybe this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good news for New York City, because he's been one of the most valuable players for them. He's been fantastic this season. He's made the defense look good in many cases, and he's one of the leading shot stoppers in the league before he got hurt against Columbus. And, New York City has come to depend upon him. So if he's able to play, and if he's going to play, it's going to be 90 minutes, then great for New York City. If not, then Luis Barraza has got to be ready to step in and shut him down.
And to go to this place, and you brought it up in the presser, I think, when you asked Nick about it, this place, this Audi Field, really that 2-0 loss last year just the hope for a playoff was still kind of on a thread at that point.
They needed it. They won that game. They're in the playoffs. They won that game in the playoffs, and they got smoked.
Is that right?
Their first half was horrific.
But if they won, they were in. Is that right? I don't think so.
Yeah, pretty much. That was it. All they needed to win was that game.
Keep talking. I got to plug in my computer.
Technology in Glenn.
I don't know how to.
No, I mean, it was one of those situations where, I mean, they won, and I don't remember right now if they actually physically clinched, but pretty much they did.
I
mean,
think
if they had gotten
stuff. They still needed stuff on the last weekend.
Well, they got a tie, and that would have look. They almost got in with a tie. So, I mean, anyway, forget it. They needed to win, and they played. I mean, to me, probably one of their worst games of the year. They got totally out hustled, especially in the first half. They didn't look like a shadow of the team that they needed to be in that game. And look, playing on the road last year was a struggle. We know this, right? 1 win and 8 ties. So and 8 losses. So we know it wasn't like a great year. But my goodness, I mean, that should have been a game that they had, because DC United was virtually eliminated by that point. But Wayne Rooney, who was still the coach back then, got them all fired up for New York City. And New York City, for some reason, wasn't fired up for DC.
No, well, remember, Rooney resigned right after the match. I mean, in the press conference after the match, he resigned. That was it.
Yeah.
Then he won off to Birmingham, and they fired him after a couple of months, and and he didn't bring Fred Briand with him when he said he would.
And you got very upset about that.
I think
were you Briand's agent at that point? I
wasn't.
Remember.
I wasn't, but lying to somebody is unforgivable when it's their profession. It's just look, it's your profession, so you can't string somebody along like that. That's so wrong.
It was bad. It really was. I know I'm just pulling your leg, but it really was bad. You don't promise somebody something like that, and then at the last second just go and basically just leave them behind. That was pretty bad. Well, if you believe in karma. It caught up for him in Birmingham.
It did. Now Troy Lessane's in town. He former Red Bull manager, former New Mexico United for the championship, came from there. He's a guy that's got a way of playing. He's got his team buying in. They've won 2 in a row. And New York City's played better on the road. But remember, they got those 3 wins. They have 3 wins, but they got them all compact much earlier in the year. And so they haven't managed a victory on the road in a long, long time. And not that a victory is necessary on Saturday, but certainly you want to get some sort of a result. Let's get to some Nick stuff because part of it is preparing for DC United, and then part of it is the international break where New York City had 6 players who were representing their countries in one manner or another. And at the top of the list is Alonso Martínez, who gets called into Costa Rica. Didn't play in the first match against Guatemala, played 63 minutes, as you identified to me at the training facility in the second match against Guadeloupe. Didn't score, but, and here's Nick Cushing, this is part of our pregame show, because I asked him about Martínez, who didn't score, I'll just say, but, and here's Nick Cushing. Just you've said this all along, so I don't think I'm sharing anything out of line here, but watching finishing practice at the end of training today, no one was even close to Alonso Martínez. He went and played in one of the 2 matches ago. What did you see?
He should score. I told him this morning, as soon as he came in, he should score. He had 2 or 3 looks that are big looks for him, and listen, he's stepping up levels, right? He's going from being a winger in Belgium to coming to MLS, now playing as a 9, scoring frequently, going to the international stage where I believe he can score consistently there. But, one game, getting the chances is the most positive part. If you're going into a game and you're not getting chances, maybe the level is too high for you. But internationally, it's definitely not too high for Alonso. The good thing about Alonso is he just shakes it off, right? He knows he should score, but no problem, I'll score next time. And the next time is going to be this Saturday for us.
All right, and we'll reverse our claim. I swear at the facility, you told me he did not play against Yes, you did. You said he did not play against Guatemala, and he played against Guadeloupe. So
I'll disagree with that.
Well, we don't have a recording.
Because the minute you said it, I was like, I think he just said that backwards. The minute you said that.
All right,
and so I just went and double-checked.
He played in the 3-0 win against Guatemala, as Roberto has double-checked, didn't score. But there you heard Nick Cushing saying that he could. But it won't get to him. And the expectation is he'll get one against DC United. Why is that? Because he is number 1 in MLS in goals per 90 minutes, he basically has a goal a game based on the fact he's, played limited minutes, 11 goals in the regular season.
Yeah, so it's let me see, 992 minutes played, 11 goals, 3 assists. That's pretty damn good. That his expected goals, his XG, for those of you who love this stuff, I know you do, Glenn. I know you do.
I don't care because
6.99.
Well, that's
high. 39 shots, 11 goals, 20 of his 39 shots, 20 on target, 11 have crossed the line. I won't say hit back of the net because some of them may have not.
Wait, Roberto, go back to expected goals. You said it's 6.29. He's well above it. Pardon?
Yeah, 6.99.
Well, he's well above his expected goals. So that should be your point. If you're going to say expected goals and use this useless statistic sometimes, then at least reinforce it somehow, saying, wow, look he's so far above his expected goals. Gee whiz.
I left that for you to analyze.
Oh my goodness, expected goals. But I'm
more impressed about the level of accuracy, because this is something I remember when Ismail Tajuri-Shradi got to New York City, and it seemed like every single shot was on frame. It was just an incredible display by him. But here we go with Martínez, who's very, very accurate. 39 total shots, 20 of them on goal, and 11 goals. I mean, that's excellent.
Well, I think you were standing next to me during the finishing training at the end, and I made reference to it with Nick. And I mean, when I say it's not even close, so who's out there? It's Martínez, Bakrar, Maxi Morales, all the wingers, and they were playing a contest. There were two teams, and the first team to 10 wins, or however Mehdi Belushi set it up. But I'm just telling you, and we've heard Nick talk about it from preseason on, is like, this guy is a pure finisher, and he showed it again today. They had the mannequins, they were running off the mannequins, doing different things, but he's impressive with it, and the statistics that you're sharing back that up. So,
what's interesting through all of this is that here's a guy who was brought in as a winger, who in a pinch could play center forward, right? Where have we heard this before? And now he's developed himself into such a lethal striker, especially if somebody plays a high line and you can put balls over the top, because he latches onto them all the time. Yeah. So it's just a really cool thing to watch him develop this way. And then, because of his play here, he has now been called into the Costa Rican national team, and he's been starting, and he's scored, and not in this window, but in the previous window. So, you're happy for him, and all you can think of is that he's just going to keep on getting better and better and better. And New York City, for maybe lucked in, if you want to say, has lucked in on a guy who really is your center forward and should be your starting center forward after, they gave every chance in the world to Moussef Bakrar, who works his ass off. And, you love to see him do that. And you have a really young guy in Mijatovic.
No, it's Martínez's shirt, and no one's close to it, and no one's getting it back for the rest of the season. It's not happening. Agreed. But there was a question. It might have been Oliver from
Oliver
River Blues. I think he asked the fact that Martínez has not put in a 90-minute shift yet. I think it's very difficult. I know Castellanos always did, but I remember sometimes he would come out of the game so exhausted. The striker in the New York City Football Club's mentality and method on the defensive side puts in a lot of work on both sides of the ball, especially, and I guess I would point to the defensive side. So I think that's part of the reason he hasn't played the full 90 yet, is that he does get gassed. I mean, having to put in all that defensive work, which I am 1,000% certain that he's never been asked to do it at that level before when he played in Belgium. Now, the striker on the other side.
I'll ask him, by the way.
Yeah.
Next time I see him, I'll ask him. I'm looking through his stats right now, and I can see that he's played over 80 minutes 3 times so far this season. It's 3 times that he's played. Okay. So
that's good. That's pretty good. So now let's go to the the number 9, the striker on the other side, this big dude, Christian Benteke, who leads MLS with 18 goals, just re-upped. He's signed through 2025 with DC United. He is a handful. And as you pointed out earlier in the day when we were at training, New York City did a pretty good job on him, limiting him to just a couple of shots the first time they played this year. But he's also kind of grown with the team too. And I think it's a different team now. It's a different Benteke now. But another question for Nick Cushing. Now, they were playing 11 aside today, so it was really a fun session to watch. And because of the depth and because everybody is healthy, it was a really good game because there's a lot of guys, I'm not going to identify who, but there's a lot of guys who are wearing the red on the scout team, the reserve team, playing the role of DC United, who have started a lot of games for New York City this year. So it was really good. But as far as who played the number 9, for the role of Benteke, so that's part of what I talked about with Nick here. Very competitive 11v11. It's nice to have depth and health as you look at your training today, as you're preparing for DC United. But on the scout team, you didn't have anybody 6'3" that you could put in the middle. And he offers something that maybe nobody else in the league does. Maybe now Giroud that he's at LAFC.
Yeah, previously we used Adam Bassi previously at the start of the season, one of our young players that's 7'1", but he's not with us anymore, so we don't have anybody to replicate that. So we use Munsef and Jovan. I think for me it's really interesting when you speak about coaching. We don't have anyone that can replicate Christian Benteke. So the easy solution for me is put 3 or 4 in there and make it difficult. If you haven't got one, put 2 or 3 people in there where the volume of having to mark and having to organise and having to communicate and putting people at the back post and central and cutbacks, and you have to put the team under severe pressure. But the other side is, I don't think anything will replicate the pressure of the moment. You have to rely on guys to learn from previous experiences to improve. And that's why, for me, my job is to develop Christian McFarland, Mitja Ilinic, Tavon Gray. These are young defenders that when they don't mark at the back post, it's about showing them and about educating them. You can't expect a young player of 10 games, 20 games, 40 games, 60 games to play like a fullback that's played 200 games. If it was Anton Tinnerholm falling asleep at the back post, it'd be a very different conversation to Mitja, to Christian, to Tavon. These are young guys that are developing their game. Yes.
And Roberto, if I could just roll into this one more cut and then we'll get really into it.
Yeah.
This is the lost art of defending. So on my SiriusXM show, I recently interviewed Steven Beitashour, who many will know. He was a longtime fullback in the league and won some championships. Markedly 2017 when Toronto won the domestic treble. So he was a right back. Now he's a U15 coach in MLS Next for San Jose, the club he started with at a college. And anyway, so I brought up to Nick this lost art of defending, and well, here's how the conversation went, and then we can really dig in. Of defending and how Steven Beitashour, in fact, a longtime MLS fullback, a proper fullback, you might call a Beitashour, just discussing that he thinks, and he's talking more on the youth and academy levels, that there's maybe more of an emphasis on the attacking side, the beauty of the game, and maybe not as much in particular on the individual defending responsibilities. Is there any credence to that, do you think? And do you think clubs spend enough time on it?
I think he's 100% right, and I think we could have a whole show on this. I really believe that. I said to my staff this morning when we go through preparing the game plan for DC, and the video is, we're going to show a lot of crosses in the box and a lot of attacking crosses from Christian Benteke. That's why his volumes are goal high. As an opposite fullback, a young fullback, how many times have you headed the ball away at the back post in your academy life? I think it's a lot of crossing. I think there's a lot of low build-up. I think there's a lot of, offensive moments. How much 1v1 defending, how much heading at the back post, how much marking. And it's not so much how much are you doing, how much are we drilling down in the detail of how to defend, how to mark, where to head the ball. It's a small thing of defending at the back post and heading the ball away. Where do you head it? How do you head it? what is your body shape?
Absolutely.
This is coaching, right? And I think ultimately the problem, I have an opinion on it, why we don't do it. One, because it's coaching is difficult, right? Drilling down is difficult.
Right.
You got to get on the pitch, you got to repeat it, you got to know the knowledge. And two, is painful for players because they got to get it wrong a lot of times.
It's not as glamorous either, you know. I mean, as a coach, you know, you enjoy maybe teaching the attacking side and getting into goal and all those different responsibilities.
Of course, you know, you go around. My two boys play over the road here at World Class, and all I ever see is crossing and finishing.
So across the street from the training facility for New York City up in Orangeburg, New York, is World Class Soccer Club, where I went many a time to bring my club teams to play. And so that's what he's referring to there.
Yeah, I took Eddie there to play a game against them when he was at Cedar Stars way back when.
So, and you were there, Roberto. So Nick, on his way out the door after we went through this, and Roberto's always with me when we do these interviews, he said, "I want to come on your show and talk about this," you know. And
yeah, he does. He absolutely does. I always wind up like stopping him before he leaves, and okay, I need to get my questions in, and we're able to get some pretty good information on that. So look, when we look at the game, and this is something that New York City was able to do very well against DC in their first game back in April when New York City won by 2-0, is that they were able to stop service. They were able to stop Benteke from being a factor. He had 2 shots, both of them wide. He had 1 good scoring opportunity that he didn't make. And so it's going to be...
He had an incredible scoring opportunity, a header that 90% of the time he just delivers into the back of the net. That for him, that was a bad miss, man. I don't know what the score was at the time, but I have a vivid memory of the goal what I thought was going to be a goal. But go ahead.
But you talk about this all the time, right? As far as what the responsibilities of the wide defenders are, and it doesn't necessarily mean the two, you know, in this case O'Toole and Tavon Gray, right? Or McFarland if he starts, or Ilinic if he starts, right? So the point being,
all 4 of them.
Point being, don't allow service. Just don't allow service. Don't let them because you've got the best target forward in the league. And so if you're going to stop him, one of the ways you're going to do it, and probably the most important way you're going to do it, is stopping service. So that means that means you've got to get in front of your guy. You can't let them cross the ball, and you can't foul. You've got to limit, you know, your aggressiveness, and don't foul anybody, you know, in an area where you can have a free kick, you know, where you can put a ball in the box to Benteke.
Because
you just can't do that. Not against this team.
Well, no, but this guy Benteke in the Premier League, you know, pretty much every year he led the league in air balls won in the Premier League. So, you know, you're right. You can't do it. And it's not just the denial of service for these 4 guys. And we say 4 because they've all played a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
But it's the weak side defending where they close their body off, don't have the vision as to what's going on behind them. And every one of them, I can't say that any of them have been disciplined enough on their weak side defending where they let people run free on the back post because they don't have an open shape to their body. And interestingly enough, Coach Cushing, when he comes on my show, I'm sure we're going to discuss the fact that there's a lot of people in a lot of academies and in a lot of youth soccer coaches who don't even talk about opening your body up defensively on the weak side, which is criminal to me. But anyway,
this is a big problem that we have in the academies. Now we're going to slide over a little bit and talk about this because it was a huge issue for me when I had my son playing at Cedar Stars. Okay. And that was the emphasis. And this just wasn't only a Cedar Stars thing. I could see it everywhere else. The emphasis on winning, the emphasis on team play, but no emphasis on individual talent, on teaching them how to do the small things correctly, on how to position their body, on what to look for, on what position to be in, all the small little things, and even attacking wise, how to dribble the ball in and out of pressure. All these little things. They're more interested in playing the ball, passing the ball, you know, triangulating the ball and trying to do tiki-taka soccer all over the place, but no individual skill training. And it may serve you as a team to win nice, shiny trophies. But when you're paying $2,500, $3,000, and God knows what they're paying now, right, to teach their kids how to play soccer, damn it, teach them individual skills. And that will make their teams better eventually instead of, oh, no, we need to win, and do that.
Oh,
it's
boy.
crazy. It's crazy.
Maybe in the off season, we can dedicate an hour of our podcast to development and bring a couple of people on to talk about it.
Please.
The lack of development in the States is general, and people can talk about whatever they want to talk about. MLS Next, the USL Academies, la-di-da-di-da. Winning is still, for the most part, there are exceptions. And I will say the New York City FC 2 team under Matt Pilkington is an exception. They want to win, but they don't do it at the expense of developing the 14, 15, and 16-year-olds that they occasionally will play or play full-time on that 2 team. But that's the issue. Winning at the U12 level, it's so unimportant.
Winning
not
is everything.
Important. It's not important.
No.
All right. So it's Noche Latina night at DC United on Saturday. And just for everyone to know, if it hasn't been out there yet, it will be Hispanic Heritage Night next Wednesday. What's today?
Philly.
Next Wednesday against Philly at Yankee Stadium. So that'll be the Noche Latina for New York City FC, Hispanic.
Vientos huracanados, caray.
Awesome. And DC United, this is going to be a tough. After this game, they only have 5 left after this game. Well, New York City has 7 left. All right, before we leave New York City FC, and we're going to take us back to August 31st and the Columbus loss 4-2. And remember, it was 2-2, and then Ted Unkel was positioned in a way where he interfered with Julian Fernandez. This was off I believe it was a recycled corner kick, and it was, and then it led to it helped lead to the game-winning goal by DeJuan Jones. So my guest on SiriusXM FC last week was Mark Geiger. Now, Mark Geiger is the first American referee to be in the middle for a knockout game in the World Cup in 2014, 2-time MLS Referee of the Year, a FIFA referee, but now he's no longer a referee. He's the head of all of them in pro. He's the pro referee general manager, replaced Howard Webb. So I asked him to explain, well, you'll hear it. I kind of lead into it here. So this is from my SiriusXM show, which, by the way, if you're a subscriber to SiriusXM, you should be listening to this show. But anyway, here's Mark Geiger. There was a rule instituted, I can't remember how many years ago, where if the ball strikes the referee, play stops, and it's generally the referee will just give it to whichever team was in possession at that moment. There was an instance in this last game before the international break. It was a game-winning goal for Columbus. And Ted Unkel inadvertently, but it happened, interfered with Julian Fernandez for New York City to try to defend what turned out to be the assist on the goal. A lot of people have seen this. I've watched it 100 times. My personal opinion is Fernandez could have maybe moved a little earlier maybe he could have made a better effort. However, his path was blocked by Ted Unkel. So I'm wondering if you could tell us, do you think Ted could have done anything differently in terms of positioning? And would there have been, when you look back, is there any recourse? Because as Nick Cushing described it, he set a pick after the game, and it kind of looked like that.
Yeah, no, it's a good question because, as you said, if the referee gets struck by the ball and it has an impact on play, the referee will stop and restart play with a drop ball. But it doesn't include situations where a referee and a player collide. So unfortunately, there's no recourse afterwards, for the VAR, for the referee to deal with this situation differently. In terms of Ted's position, when you look at the play and how it develops, there's a potential challenge on the left-hand side of the penalty area, possible in or out, possible penalty, no penalty. And so Ted has actually positioned himself on the left-hand side in a position in order to make a decision on penalty or no penalty, which is the most important decision for a referee to make. The ball gets flighted out. He takes one step back, and that's when the contact happens between the players. So from my perspective, for the decision leading up to the situation, Ted was in the position that we expect him to be in. We have to understand that referees have to be in a position on the field, and they have to put themselves in the best position to have the best angle of view to make decisions on the field. So the referee is going to be on the field, and players sometimes have to adapt to where the referee is. So if Ted was in an incorrect position or just not aware of what's going on around him, then I can sit there and say that Ted was at fault. But on this particular situation, I can't find fault in where Ted was positioned, just because he needed to be there for the decision prior to the contact that was made.
To follow up, as coaches, we are constantly emphasizing with our players scanning so that they're aware of their surroundings. And you mentioned that briefly. How much time do you spend with your referees in their schooling on scanning and seeing everything? And I'll just go back to Ted in that instance.
Yep.
Is it possible that he could have scanned a little bit more and noticed what was going on? Obviously, you have to be focused, to where the ball is too, and that's always the, challenge for the referee, the assistant referee, everybody out there.
Now, there are opportunities to scan, when there's no pressure on the ball or during a fast attack, a counter attack, or a fast transition, there's opportunities to scan to your left, to your right to see what the options are. But when there's an imminent challenge or a possible imminent challenge on the ball, then 100% of their focus needs to be on the ball and making sure that they're getting the correct decision, because you can't always depend on VAR since they have an even higher threshold for what's expected on the field.
Right.
Now, Ted runs past Fernandez, but after he runs past him, he's not going to be aware, because his focus is forward on the ball. He's not going to be aware where he is. So it's going to be very difficult for him to adjust the position. And I really don't think at that precise moment, it was Ted's responsibility to move left or right to get out of his way, since he doesn't know that he's coming through.
So, New York City supporters, there is your long but thorough and very detailed explanation as to why the guy who leads the referees at MLS, Pro Referees General Manager Mark Geiger, said that Ted Unkel was not at fault. He was positioned perfectly. I would still dispute that a little bit because I think you could still have that awareness. But I will say two other things, Roberto, and then I would like your commentary on this. First of all, Julian Fernandez could have moved sooner. He could have got himself into the area sooner. It's unquestionably, he could have seen what was developing a little sooner. Was he blocked off? Absolutely. Could he have come in and swept it away or done something? Absolutely. But he still started late. And then DeJuan Jones, right? And on the pregame show, this is brought up to Nick directly, because I think it's alarming that there were 4 blue shirts there, 1 New England Revolution player there.
Ex-New England Revolution player.
Huh?
Ex-New England Revolution.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I still think of it as New England. But anyway, exactly. 1 Columbus Crew, ex-New England Revolution player there. And he has time to settle, finish. Oh my goodness. I thought that was pretty unforgivable how they marked that, but I could see why they felt hard done by. But me personally, I'm not blaming Ted Unkel on the loss. I can't do it. But it is the second time that Unkel has interfered like that in a moment in MLS. So we got to keep that in mind too.
New York City's had really bad luck with Ted Unkel as a referee. And I mentioned that before the game, I went, we were looking at all the stats and everything. And New York's record with Ted Unkel is not exactly the best. And look, in that game, they went ahead, fell behind, tied it. They looked like they were going to get out of there with a point, which would have been a great result in a very difficult place to play. And then they just imploded at the end. The lack of awareness defensively, and I'm not just saying the defenders, but the lack of awareness defensively at that point of the game, to allow that goal, DeJuan Jones to settle the ball in front of Matt Freese and then calmly slot it. I mean, that's just so hard to watch. It was just is he offside? Is he something? And it was nah, he's not.
Well, Roberto, I want to add on to some of the statistical Ted Unkel stuff. All right, you're going to really like this. Really like this. Since 2016, New York City FC have collected 1.68 points per game average in MLS when reffed by anyone except Ted Unkel. The results with Unkel are 0.81. All right. That's across 16 matches, 7 home, 9 away. So that's a decent sample size. At home, New York City, 2.04 points per game since that time. When Ted Unkel is doing a home match, and there were 7 of them, 0.86. On the road, 1.46 for New York City, the average. When Ted Unkel refereed, it was 0.67 in those 9 road games. Now, look, the guy, it's pretty stark. It's stark. The next closest referee over those years with a similar amount of matches was Armando Villarreal with 17 matches, 1.47 points per game for New York City as compared to 0.81 for Unkel. So,
but here's the record. Here's the record for New York City with Ted Unkel: 3 wins, 6 ties, 9 losses now.
Well, anyway. And for Columbus, right? It was like Columbus had a massively
11 wins, 4 ties, 6 losses, now 12 wins.
All right, listen, we don't want. I would find it hard to believe that Ted Unkel is doing anything nefarious here. However, everybody's human, and maybe something happened along the way to Unkel by who knows, a coach or a player, and deep down it's held against.
I don't think there's any prejudice against New York City, but I mean, things happen. What are you going to do? You got to have a losing record with somebody, and Ted Unkel's the guy.
Romeo Beckham chooses fashion over soccer. That was the big story during the international break. The son of David Beckham. He was with the Brentford Reserve. I think it's interesting that David Beckham's son, who played MLS Next Pro with Miami, got 2 goals and 10 assists in a single season. That's not a bad mark. Went to Brentford to play with their reserves, has now quit soccer and is moving into fashion with his mother. I think it's an interesting
I was just about to say, the son of Victoria Beckham follows her footsteps into fashion.
All right.
I mean, that's a headline.
Miami Freedom Park not opening until 2026. So here, can New York City win the battle of who opens their stadium first? Because that'll be delayed again. You don't think that'll be delayed again?
They can build it a lot quicker there. Look, remember,
it's not opening until 26. It was supposed to open in 24, then 25.
But once they start building, they're going to be very quick because they built the stadium in Fort Lauderdale, including tearing down Lockhart, in 9 months. They went from tearing down Lockhart to opening that stadium in 9 months.
That's like a mobile stadium that they built.
This one's going to be with cement. This, the one in Fort Lauderdale doesn't have cement, and I worry if a hurricane blows through.
How is that an apt comparison, Roberto? The way that they refurbished the old Stryker Park. I mean,
that wasn't a refurbishing of the old Stryker Park. They totally took it down. They went down to 0. They raised it. Well, it's not refurbished. They raised it. It just happens to be built on the same location, but it got raised. It's a different thing. No, this one's going to be different. It's going to be with cement and all of that.
I want to be raised.
No, you don't. This is with a Z. You don't want to do that.
I want to raise. All right, let's kick it around. All right, so Roberto and I are going to head out in the morning. I'll be taking a New Jersey transit train from New Brunswick, New Jersey. Roberto, I don't know how you're getting there, but
the A train to the 7 train to Hudson Yards.
Hudson Yards, 30 Hudson, and that's going to be where Mauricio Pochettino is going to be introduced to the media and whoever else shows up. I'm sure it'll be a lot of dignitaries at this one for, again, his introductory press conference. And it's an exciting time. Obviously bringing a guy of this ilk, a guy who I think, and you're a Spurs supporter, so I'm sure you watched him very closely when he was there. But he did very well there with a club that was really struggling when he took over. And part of what he was able to do was lift individual players to play beyond what they thought that they were capable of. And those are my favorite coaches. And he's done that time and time again with individuals. And then collectively getting the team to understand that we're going to have fun playing soccer, boys. I mean, look, I as I told you, I'm going to read an excerpt. So this guy, here's the book. So those who are watching, and I'm insisting that you get this book and read it. And Roberto, if you don't, I'm going to be really angry with you because it's your guy. It is your guy, Pochettino, who you wanted to coach this team. Guillaume Balaguer is going to be my guest next week on Sirius XMFC. Okay, so
you interviewed him once before, right? You interviewed Balaguer once before.
When this book was published in 2017, but I've reread it and I've really marked out a lot of different things because. So I want to read you this. You'll like this because you're a Bielsa fan. So Marcelo Bielsa, what you'll learn in this book, and you may have heard this story already, but Marcelo Bielsa, in the middle of the night, when Pochettino was 14 years old, came to visit his farmhouse. He lived on this farm in Argentina with his parents and knocked on the door and told the father, I got to talk to your son. He's sleeping. Doesn't matter. Woke him up and said, you're coming to Newell's Old Boys. We're going to sign you. And that's how Bielsa discovered, Pochettino. And that's the start of his career as a player. And he played internationally. He represented Argentina with a famous foul on Michael Owen, which he'd rather forget.
So you're bringing up. So yeah. He's going to look forward to see you tomorrow. Yeah.
So consequently, the Pochettino, and he was coached at Newell's Old Boys and also Espanyol by Bielsa. So he's obviously been influenced by him. But here's what Pochettino says from the book Brave New World. I'm not as obsessed with the opposition as Bielsa was. And I love this line because wait till you see the correlation, Roberto. He says he even asked his assistants to dress up in disguise to sneak in and watch opponents train behind closed doors because he was so obsessed with the preparation per what the opponents would bring. But Roberto, on my way to Vegas, and I should have kicked off the show saying I was at Vegas at this blues festival with my daughter. Unbelievable. So I really had a relaxing break. But I watched this Netflix documentary, Untold, the sign stealer. And that's that guy, Connor Stallions at the University of Michigan. I don't know how well you know this story, Roberto, but he was caught stealing signs in an illegal way. You're not allowed to go to the stadium you can watch film and do all that and figure it out, but you're not allowed to go inside a stadium of your opponent and then steal the signs that way. Well, he was on the sideline of opponents. He was like on the opponent's sideline, he was pictured there. And so it immediately, I love the fact that Bielsa, he's in disguise, or he's got his assistants in disguise, and this guy was in disguise trying to steal signs for Jim Harbaugh on the University of Michigan. And
wow, I wonder if John Herdman read the book as well and read that passage and decided to take it a step further.
I mean, Herdman, maybe he learned from Harbaugh, who, by the way, was suspended a few games near the end of that season. Michigan, though,
yes, he was.
Michigan won the national championship that year. Last year. It was
and now he's a coach of the Chargers, and they won their first game.
So, one other thing I wanted to read. Let me this was interesting, I thought, too, because he's talking about family. His father-in-law died and he was away because of his job. And he said it was hard for him to overcome that. And he says this, we know this is a productive period for me. Now, this is 2017, and I'm working round the clock, taking time away from my partner, his wife, Karina, and sons. The day will come when the offers dry up in Europe. They may want me in Japan or the United States, and just the two of us could go for a new experience for a couple of years. It's 2024, World Cup 2026. So far, we've made all the decisions as a family, sometimes more for their sake than mine. So here in 2017, he was intimating that there might be a possible journey to the U.S., and it's happened, Roberto. Your guy.
And not only that, but he signed for 2 years.
And he signed for 2 years.
He's
out.
And he signed for 2 years. So, I mean, we'll see what happens after the World Cup. But by the way, something that you mentioned before of who else is going to be there. So U.S. Soccer President Cindy Parlow-Cone is going to be there tomorrow. Secretary General J.T. Batson is going to be there tomorrow. And Sporting Director Matt Crocker will be there tomorrow. I do want to find out who the two benefactors for U.S. Soccer are that are paying his, I believe, $6 million a year salary.
Well, the Athletic had there's been details. Jeff Carlisle, Paul Tenorio have provided details. I think the guy's name, I don't know who he is. Kenneth Griffin, I think that's the name, but I don't have it in front of me, so forgive me.
Oh, I haven't. I've been like so busy with other stuff this week that I haven't been able to follow what they do. Carlisle for ESPN, Tenorio for the Athletic.
They've defined who the benefactor is. A billion.
I mean, that's for a billionaire. That's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. So it's a $6 million salary. Berhalter was getting paid 2.3. Emma Hayes is getting reportedly paid a little under 2, and reportedly she does not have a clause in her contract that states my salary will escalate to that of another former Chelsea coach. I mean, it's pretty cool. 2 former Chelsea coaches who are close. Emma apparently played at least somewhat of a role in getting him here. And because of her experience with him and her ability to talk to him and say, look, great place to be. But I think a lot of the things just came together. And part of it is this guy wants the adventure of being here and working with the United States. He's not going to live here, Roberto, not full time.
No,
he's going to live in Barcelona, it sounds like. But, I'm sure he'll be here enough to, to take care of what he needs to take care of. But the U.S. men's national team job or any national team job, it's not day to day with your club team. So it's a less, in many ways, it's a less stressful job. It seems perfect for him at a perfect time. And I think the book from Guillaume Balaguer kind of talked about that. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk to Guillaume about too, is just, the timing of this.
And here's the important part about, because when people are going to say, well, why isn't he living in the United States? And when other coaches were forced to live not only in the United States, but Chicago and remember when that whole thing was going on, right? But the majority of the U.S. national team plays in Europe. And so it is better to be in Europe to be able to go and scout all those players and scout a lot of players that haven't been seen by the U.S. national team. I mean, there was one guy, I'm trying to remember right now, Fossey, was it? The right back for...
I liked him. Belgian kid. But he plays in Belgium.
He plays at Standard Liège.
Yeah.
His name, Fossey, right? Right now I'm just blanking because
Marlon,
I wasn't planning on speaking about him.
Well, I didn't know who he was. Well, I didn't know who he was when I saw the lineup come out. I just didn't know. So I looked him up, and I think it's Marlon Fossey. But he, well, you could tell. We were talking earlier about the art of defending. He's not big on the defensive side, but he does like to get forward and attack. And his quality of service was a little, was good at sometimes, but poor at other times. But he helped set up a goal, so that's important. And then actually, who scored the goal that was Pepe scored, and it was ridiculous. There was no foul, and the foul was called against Fossey, and I didn't see a foul.
I didn't see a foul there either. I thought that was a legitimate goal for Pepe. Marlon Fossey, 26 years old, getting his first cap for the U.S. Great to see that, they're able to find players like that. He's been playing with Standard Liège for a couple of seasons now, since 2022. Before that, he was with Fulham for all of one game, played with Bolton, came out of the Fulton Academy, played with the U.S. U20s from 2016 to 2018.
Well, yeah, that's his only prior cap was with a U.S. youth national team. And by the way, Roberto, he was the highest rated player. On both sides by FOTMOB at
7.9. Yes. So I mean, it's what I take out of that game, right, was that wow, okay, all of a sudden we've added somebody to the pool. And that's important. That's what some of these games are for. The fact that they tied after getting smoked by Canada, and boy, were they smoked by Canada. I mean, that was like, if it wasn't for Schulte, that's a 4-1, 5-1 game. Okay.
Everybody should go. Yeah. And Patrick Schulte he's the goalkeeping for the U.S. men's national team leaving to the World Cup. It's in really, really desperate shape, I would say. Desperate. Excuse me. Patrick Schulte is not an international goalkeeper. Don't fool yourself. Please don't anyone fool yourself. Matt Turner's getting 0 minutes.
Yes.
So who's playing goal in 2026? Maybe somebody will emerge. But anyway,
if Zach Steffen continues to play well for Colorado, then that's going to be the guy.
I don't mind seeing him get another chance, and it'll be
he
very
should absolutely.
That's going to be one of the more interesting decisions to me
by Pochettino.
Yeah,
but here's an important point, I believe. Okay, that it's better, right? Everybody wants to go and play in Europe, and everybody is like so quick and push, go to Europe. But if you're not playing in Europe, if you become the third guy, right, on a team that dresses 2 goalies, that's not good. That's not good. And that's what happened to Matt Turner, who now got, loaned to Crystal Palace. And now he's number 2 over there. But now he's losing a chance, right? Because that was his position. He was a starter and he was entrenched. Now it's up in the air. So now Zach Steffen, that's playing in MLS, is going to get a chance again at some point. Because everybody's starting from zero.
It'd be pretty interesting if Steffen wins it back after, remember, he loses out to Turner for Qatar. Greg Berhalter doesn't bring him, his former keeper at Columbus. And from what I heard, he didn't bring him because Zach Steffen wasn't too happy about being number 2. And he had this feeling that he might bring, a negative vibe when Gio Reyna did a good enough job of doing that anyway. So it would have been double the negative.
Maybe it would have taken some away from Reyna.
Hey, we do have a sponsor on the Sick Podcast, NYCFC.
Yes, we do.
It's Homage. And there it is, Homage, specializing in ultra comfy. I can vouch for that because the T-shirts we have and the hoodies that we have that were so generously sent to us it's really the material is fantastic. And not to get too personal here, Roberto, but that is my sleep shirt. I like to sleep with a shirt on, and that is my sleep shirt because it is so soft. So whether you sleep on it with it or you wear it out to a game, it doesn't matter. Homage, just go to the link and go find New York City FC.
Is it homage or homage? I never asked.
I just say homage, paying homage. We're paying homage to homage now. They may have some restructuring to do because let's see the new logos here, Jimmy, or the new.
Here
logo.
We go.
So there's old and new, and I can't believe how crazy people got about this, Roberto. And we can't spend too much time here because we only have 8 minutes left, and we do want to get to Jennifer O'Neill and your question of her at the iconic icon. No, pull it back up.
Put it back up. I don't want to see
Put it back up, Jimmy. Thank you. So I think, and I wrote to Milo Kowalski, who is the guy who's the chief architect of this in the club.
Yes.
And he's the one, he's getting, he, not personally, but the club is getting a bit of a hard time on social media about this. So the old one's on the left.
They are?
The new one, that's supposedly, yes. I like the new one better.
I like the new one. The new one.
It's like tighter, and I know the word bold is used in the press release, but it does have a bolder look. I like it.
Oh, it is bold, yeah. And not only that, the New York City, which is what the team has been emphasizing, the New York City part of it, right, is bolder, it's bigger, it's more in your face, right? The reason why they sort of intimated they didn't want to be known as NYCFC anymore, but New York City Football Club or New York City FC was because they thought that a lot of people didn't recognize the fact that it was a New York City club, which I don't get that, but that's what they thought, and that's what their research told them. So be it.
All right.
But with this refresh that they've done, New York City is bigger and bolder, and they've changed the fonts to a little bit more of a modern font. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. Good job by Milo and everybody else who contributed to this, because it's more than just one person. So
all right, and get it out now, Jimmy, because I would like to go on record saying this. I don't care what the logo looks like. This is ultimately, and Milo, this is nothing against you because this is just who I am. I don't care about logos. I don't care about uniforms. I care about what the football looks like. I want a good playing soccer team. You could wear a T-shirt and go logo-less. Just play good soccer. That's what I care about. All right, good soccer. Now, you were out at Icahn Stadium, which has now become the home of New York City FC 2, which is pretty cool. They've played 2 games there, September 6th and September the 11th. I think both of them end in draws?
I don't know. The first one did, because they were winning that game, and they allowed a goal in the last minute.
The second one did as well, and they lost the penalties, I think.
They lost penalties in the one against Atlanta, too.
Okay. But one of the New York City executives was there, Jennifer O'Sullivan, who's the COO of the New York City Football Club. And I thought you had a very interesting question, because we've brought this up before, that where they have this new field is like, it's always been, there seems to have been a reluctance because it's a track and field operation. But anyway, you go. Here it comes. Run that, Jimmy. The second one.
This venue had basically been built in a way so there wouldn't be any soccer, and it was part of the DNA of the venue when it was built, that it was only going to be for track and field.
Yeah.
How did that change where all of a sudden it's been accepted?
Well, I think that, the Icahn name and the venue itself is so well known, as you said, in the track and field space. But at the very heart of this entire place, it's community, and it's bringing people together and celebrating sport and athletics. And so we had the conversation around, soccer is growing in this country, it's growing in this city, and it's the future. And it is a sport that brings together so many in this community. And there is a way for track and field and for soccer to live side by side here, and to expose so many more kids to the potential of what soccer can be. And they were incredibly amenable to it. And so, it was sort of an easy conversation, I would say, to sort of sell that vision to folks here.
So, Roberto, $3 million donated by the New York City Football Club to install the Kentucky Bluegrass, which is good grass for a soccer pitch at Icahn. And this is the old Downing Stadium, right? And this is
again, Downing Stadium was razed. Same thing as what happened in Fort Lauderdale. It was totally razed and destroyed. It rises on the same plot of land, but they're nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, and we know Pele making his American debut on Randall's Island has such a soccer history, and soccer is played by the youth on the city, all over the place on the island, and it's
they have, for people who have not visited, and I've been there often. Okay, they have somewhere in the vicinity of 50 soccer fields, some of them grass, some of them turf, and they also have somewhere in the vicinity of 50 baseball fields as well. So it is just great to go there, and you could see plenty of teams. Actually, Eddie's high school played there. I got to see him play a couple of times over there. So it's great. It's great to see. Now, as far as Icahn Field is concerned, it has stands for a little bit under 5,000 people. And if need be, they could add stands like in each end zone. It's sort of harder to put on the other side. But not only is NYCFC 2 going to play some of their games there, not all of their games. They're still going to play games in St. John's, but they're going to play a lot of their games there. But also, New York City is looking at it until they get their stadium built to be able to play U.S. Open Cup games there, and maybe other games as well, if it's CONCACAF Champions Cup or whatever, depending on who the opponent is. So, they have to see if they can do that or not, because that depends upon CONCACAF and it depends upon other things. So the other question that I asked Jennifer that we didn't get to play was that if there was an idea, if they thought about the fact that why doesn't New York City FC 2 be sort of like a little bit of a nomadic team that plays in the different boroughs? So let's say that they play in the, in the old minor league Yankees stadium that's built in Staten Island, and then play a game maybe at Fordham University in the Bronx, play in either Coney Island or Brooklyn College in Brooklyn, and then play, in Queens at St. John's. But I don't think that that's really in the future for the team. And, we'll see what happens with New York City FC 2, because I think at the end of the day, what they're going to wind up doing is that they're going to play somewhere near New York City, but not New York City. And that, we talked about that a little bit. So you never know if it's where exactly they're going to wind up being.
And I suppose bad news for New York City FC is that the New York Mets are doing so well recently, and they're now in playoff position, which will impact the end of the season.
Oh, you're
Sorry.
celebrating stuff.
Sorry, sir, but I'm not necessarily celebrating, but a 20-minute
Oh my
ride.
God, you were taller than me throughout the whole practice when you were talking about it.
20-minute drive versus an hour and 45 minutes. Anybody in my shoes or whatever else I'm wearing would feel the same way. Hey, real quickly, Memphis Depay to Corinthians. How will that impact the loanee from New York City FC, Tylus Magno, 3 goals in 5 games, and Richie Ledesma, the guest on that morning footy show on CBS Sports, and he is with Ernie Stewart at PSV, and he's talking about his goals to get back with the U.S. men's national team. And just like you said, Roberto, new coach, perhaps new opportunities. Okay.
New position for Richie. He's playing right back, and he's been killing it. Been killing it. So, and Serginho Dest is hurt. Joe Scally's been so-so. Now we have Fossey, who played pretty well, but maybe Richie Ledesma gets called in. He's been player of the game twice already.
Saturday, airtime, 7:15 p.m. for the pregame show, both on English and Spanish on the New York City FC Network, nycfc.com/radio, NYCFC app, and however else you want to figure it out. But that's going to do it for us. Live NYCFC views. Love doing it live, and it looks like we may have broken our record for live viewers today, so we're happy about that. Spread the word. We do this once a week. We did take last week off, and that's because I was away, but please hang with us. For Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks for NYCFC Views Live.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.